What happens when the courtroom, the very place meant to deliver justice, becomes a stage for horror? For the families of victims, every word, every piece of evidence cuts like a blade. And sometimes, the shocking truth revealed inside those walls is far more chilling than anyone imagined. This is not fiction. These are true events, captured in real footage, etched into public records, and forever haunting the collective memory of justice. From disturbing testimony to the psychological unraveling of a criminal mind, these cases left judges, juries, and entire nations shaken. Tonight, we step inside the hidden truth of trials that changed history. Consider the unsolved mysteries that don't just end at the crime scene, but unfold in front of cameras, prosecutors, and grieving families. Evidence once thought airtight crumbles in plain sight, and lives that vanished in silence resurface in shocking detail. Courtrooms are supposed to bring closure, but in cases like these, they become arenas of unbearable tension, where disturbing truths are spoken aloud for the very first time. Each testimony feels like a knife twisting deeper into the wounds of those left behind. In these chilling trials, the line between justice and torment blurs. We witness not just legal arguments, but raw human anguish. The evidence, once hidden, emerges with devastating clarity, and the world watches in disbelief. Take, for instance, the 1995 trial of Susan Smith, the South Carolina mother who claimed her children had been kidnapped by a stranger. Her tearful pleas were broadcast nationwide, fueling panic and empathy. But when the truth surfaced, that she had drowned her own sons, the courtroom gasped in collective horror. The prosecution laid out the psychological torment that led Smith to such an unfathomable act. Jurors wept as they listened to confessions that shattered the nation's heart. The hidden truth wasn't just disturbing, it was soul-crushing. In another infamous courtroom, the trial of serial killer Ted Bundy unfolded with a surreal mix of horror and fascination. Bundy, representing himself, smiled, flirted, and spoke as if he were above the law. But behind his charm was the evidence of dozens of vanished women whose final moments were unspeakable. Bundy's performance in court revealed a terrifying psychological profile. A criminal mind so manipulative, so disturbingly confident, that even legal professionals felt the weight of his presence. When the guilty verdict came down, it wasn't just justice, it was relief. But not all trials end with clear answers. Some cases leave the courtroom echoing with questions, contradictions, and haunting doubts. And in one particular trial, what unfolded in the witness stand would leave the world speechless. The trial of Jodi Arias in 2013 was unlike anything the American public had seen before. The brutal killing of Travis Alexander was already disturbing, but it was Arias's behavior in court that created shockwaves. Her shifting stories, calm demeanor, and calculated tears became a chilling spectacle. The jury was forced to navigate through a maze of lies, psychological manipulation, and disturbing crime scene photos. Each piece of evidence contradicted her earlier claims. It wasn't just a trial. It was a performance in deceit. Arias even smiled at the cameras, as if she were auditioning for a role rather than defending her life. Experts testified about her obsessive, possessive behavior. And as the evidence stacked against her, the courtroom felt like a stage for her unraveling mind. But perhaps no moment of courtroom history captured global attention like the trial of O.J. Simpson in 1995. Dubbed the trial of the century, it became a media circus unlike anything before. Millions watched in real time as the disturbing evidence against Simpson clashed with his legal team's powerful defense. The bloody glove, the DNA evidence, the chilling timeline of events, all pointed toward guilt. Yet the jury's decision stunned the world. Not guilty. Two words that sparked outrage, disbelief, and an enduring debate about justice in America. The case revealed deep cracks in the system. It wasn't just about evidence, it was about race, fame, and media power colliding inside the courtroom. And when the verdict was read, the hidden truth wasn't closure, it was division. Sometimes, though, courtroom shockwaves aren't about acquittals, but about raw, emotional confessions. In 2002, Andrea Yates stood trial for drowning her 5 children in a bathtub. Her defense argued severe postpartum psychosis, while the prosecution painted her as a calculated killer. The details left the courtroom gasping. Jurors heard about the children's final moments, one by one, pulled into the water. The disturbing reality was almost unbearable to hear, even for seasoned professionals. Psychiatrists described her psychological torment, while the defense fought for understanding rather than punishment. The courtroom became not only a place of judgment, but of agonizing reflection on the failures of mental health care. And in that moment, justice itself felt fragile. But just when you think you've seen the darkest courtroom revelations, another case emerges that shakes the very foundation of truth. A trial where the key witness wasn't just unreliable, they turned the entire case upside down. And what followed left families, jurors, and the public questioning everything they thought they knew. In 2011, the trial of Casey Anthony became a cultural obsession. Her 2-year-old daughter, Kaylee, had vanished, and the nation demanded answers. But what unfolded in court was a storm of lies, missing evidence, and shocking accusations. Prosecutors painted Anthony as a mother who wanted freedom, while the defense claimed Kaylee's death was a tragic accident. The disturbing photos, the duct tape, the smell of decomposition in her car, all pointed to guilt. Yet in the end, the jury's verdict stunned the public, not guilty of murder. Crowds outside the courthouse screamed in disbelief. Millions watching at home felt the ground shift beneath them. For many, this wasn't just a trial. It was the death of faith in the system. Then came the trial of Scott Peterson in 2004. His pregnant wife, Lacey, had vanished on Christmas Eve, and her body was later discovered washed ashore. The nation followed every detail, captivated by the double life Peterson tried to conceal. The courtroom heard recordings of his phone calls where he spoke casually with his mistress as if nothing had happened. Jurors stared in shock as the mask of the perfect husband crumbled. When the guilty verdict was read, relief swept through the room, but the haunting question remained. How could someone so ordinary commit something so monstrous? Some trials expose corruption not in a single person, but in entire systems. The Menendez brothers case in the 1990s revealed layers of abuse, privilege, and rage. Their confession of killing their wealthy parents sent shockwaves through both Hollywood and the legal world. The defense claimed years of psychological and physical abuse drove them to kill. The prosecution painted them as greedy young men hungry for inheritance. In the end, the jury wrestled with a disturbing question. Were they victims or villains? Then there are moments when the courtroom itself becomes deadly. In 1997, during the trial of Larry Gene Ashbrook, violence erupted when he later went on a shooting rampage, shocking even seasoned investigators. The haunting reminder, sometimes the danger doesn't end at the crime scene. It follows into the halls of justice. But perhaps the most spine-chilling moments come when a defendant shows no remorse at all. Charles Manson sat in court smirking, etching X's into his forehead, and manipulating his followers with just a glance. The courtroom wasn't just about evidence. It became a stage for pure evil. And yet one case stands apart for its sheer unpredictability. A trial where the testimony of a single witness flipped the story upside down. What they revealed would not only change the verdict, but expose a horrifying truth no one was prepared for. In 1989, the Central Park 5 case exposed how fragile truth can be inside a courtroom. 5 teenagers were convicted of a brutal assault based on coerced confessions. Years later, DNA evidence proved their innocence, and the hidden truth was finally revealed. The men spent their youth behind bars for a crime they did not commit. The courtroom that once sealed their fate became the place of their redemption. But the scars, psychological and emotional, never truly healed. Sometimes it is not just the verdict that haunts us, but the chilling testimonies forever echoing in our minds. From the BTK killer calmly describing his murders in court, to the Columbine shooters' journals being read aloud, revealing a disturbing window into hatred and obsession. Each case leaves behind more than transcripts. They leave behind images, sounds, and words that replay endlessly in the minds of jurors, families, and survivors. The courtroom becomes less about justice and more about endurance. Consider the trial of Jeffrey Dahmer in 1992. Survivors and victims' families stood only feet away from the man who had committed unthinkable acts. When they finally spoke, the courtroom erupted with raw, uncontainable grief and rage. One father lunged at Dahmer, screaming for justice that no sentence could ever deliver. For a moment, the courtroom cracked under the weight of unbearable pain. It was not procedure. It was pure humanity breaking through. These trials remind us that evidence is not just paperwork and exhibits. It is lives destroyed, futures stolen, and the psychological torment of survivors forced to relive their darkest days. The law seeks order, but the human heart bleeds chaos. Each chilling case leaves a scar on history. We remember the disturbing footage, the shocking testimony, the vanished lives that echo in every verdict. Courtrooms may deliver sentences, but they also deliver memories that never fade. And when the gavel strikes, it doesn't always mean closure. For some, it means new questions, sleepless nights, and wounds that justice cannot heal. The system may write the final word, but the story continues in silence. So we are left with this haunting truth: justice is never simple, and the courtroom is never safe from shockwaves. Behind every verdict lies a hidden truth, waiting to be uncovered. And sometimes what is revealed inside those walls is darker than the crime itself.